Welcome everyone to our afternoon session here at NIARM. My name is Margie Russell. Our topic today is balancing your heating system, but beyond that, it's about saving your building thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars every year, just through burning less fuel, but as well as not tearing up your capital parts of the building with burning too hot, tearing up your risers, your valves, and all the other components. So this is the beginning of that thought process, because for how many years? 100 years we've been burning number 6 fuel, and now 90% of the buildings in this town are doing something different, and we don't want to take 60 years to undo the ways. We know we're not burning it anymore, but we don't want to take that long to undo the ways. Now before that, we have one announcement and one brain opener. And so the announcement is from Deborah Mannion, and she's with an organization that collects the clothes for the veterans, and the money goes to the veterans. She's going to take a minute to explain that. And then after Deborah, we have Mardi Hill, who is our thought guru, and she's going to introduce the concept of executive function. Not executive power, executive function. And so while you're learning about how to better manage the capital systems in your building, while you're doing that, you have to watch out for fire, you have to stop floods, you have to make sure the doormen are not sleeping. There's all sorts of things going on. And we want to develop a certain part of our brain, and we can do that better if we understand the concept of executive function. So before every mechanical seminar we have, we're going to take a couple of minutes and think of these concepts. So Deborah, and then Mardi Hill.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? I'm Deborah Menich. I run the Clothing and Household Goods Recycling Program for the veterans in the greater New York area. I want to thank Margie for supporting our program. She's been a great support for many years. We started the program about 8 years ago. What is the program? Very simply, very quickly, we come to you. We come to all buildings. We're within the city, within Queens, all over Staten Island, and actually Long Island and New Jersey as well. We've ramped up to collect 3 million pounds within the boroughs just this last year of clothing and textiles and household goods. We basically take everything one strong man can carry. We don't take mattresses, we don't take big Barca loungers, but we don't sort through it. We pretty much, and yes, we take electronics. We know it's a law now. Our phones have been ringing off the hook. The program is a concierge white glove type of pickup service. So you log on or you call the 888 number. There are flyers in the back as well as my cards. We have flyers this large so that you can put them in your buildings to inspire people. We also have very discreet letters that you can put on your letterhead if it's a condo type and a co-op type situation. So however the word needs to be spread in your buildings and with your residences, there are ways to make it happen. It's an extremely flexible program. We run 50 trucks. We're in the city continuously. The items are sorted and sold in thrift stores. Now, don't think little New York thrift store, think large 30,000 square foot building. There's 13 of them along within the Bronx and Jersey and so forth. When you walk in there, you don't feel like you're in a thrift store, so that when someone is purchasing the items, we're getting, we think, the biggest bang for the donation, and more proceeds go to veteran services. We're the guys who run up Fifth Avenue on Veterans Day and shut the city down. We reach out in a variety of different programs for veterans within the community. Recycling is key to our nation's future these days, and generally, one of the big buzzwords that I'll leave you with is that our veterans have signed up to protect their country, and now they want to save their universe. All the way down to, door-to-door pickup services that we offer. So log on, spread the word. We don't put any money into really marketing. We feel that the proceeds should be going to the veterans. So if you can spread the word and help us out, that would be wonderful. So thank you for your time and the little infomercial that I was able to do today.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Margie, for inviting me here. My name is Mardi Ellen Hill, and I'll talk to you a little bit about this term, executive function, which sounds like a term of major authority. It is, and it isn't. It's something that every one of us in our lives has to learn to execute within a situation, especially within building management or management of any kind. Executive function is a term that's only really been around the last 20 years or so. It's an umbrella term, and it covers a whole host of behavioral and psychological ideas. That sounds pretty profound. Bottom line is, how do you orchestrate a decision? How do you make a decision quickly when you're called upon to do it, and it is not necessarily your role in the building, in your management team? This happens very frequently. If we look at the plane crash that just happened overseas, we see one of a whole domino effect of the lack of executive function. Because people have to override decisions to make a very informed, authoritative response. So I'll leave you with that. I don't want to go on. It's a very big term that goes to behavior, memory, recall, decision-making, prioritizing, and a whole host of issues that you have to be fairly well rehearsed in before you make a quick response. It's a buzzword. It's one of those buzzwords that I'm a little bit allergic to, because it involves quite a bit of comprehension before one is able to really move under the map of executive function. So I just want to leave you by saying Margie and I will probably be doing a number of articles about this term and the various facets of it that will be coming into your life in this very fast-moving 21st century world. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. And one example, as you're all going to be hiring building staff for vacation, and you might be thinking, well, the person I hire for vacation can be less than in ability than the people that I already have. In fact, maybe the people that you hire for your summer help need to be more than, because those are the people who will not have the experience or the institutional memory of your building. And so you want them to be able to draw from their own experience, and they will be drawing from their own personal executive function abilities. So as you're interviewing people for your summer staff, delve into what they've done and what their experience has been, and think, will this person be able to react as someone who has no institutional memory in this building and the way we do things? So that's one example that we look for executive function at every level in the in the management train. Okay, with that, I'm going to name off the speakers, and then I'll go through who's going to be speaking first, because the order that people are seated is not necessarily the order that they'll be speaking. Okay. To the far is Daniel Karpen, who is a professional engineer who has his own firm. We have Bill Jebaily, the principal of Aggressive Energy. We have Peter Funk, who is a partner in his own law firm, specializing in the deals and the contracts on heating issues. And then we have Alexander Weiss, who is a professional engineer, his own firm, and an instructor many places in the city, including here at the Mechanics Institute. We have Adis Feratovic, who is a resident manager at Charles Greenthal. And we have Motie Prashad, who is with United Metro Energy, and we have Charlie Marino at Braxton Engineering. Okay, so first, well, Charlie is the moderator. Then we will hear from Motie Prashad, who is going to give us his insight and the things he's been living through with all the switching back and forth from one heating fuel to another. And then we're going to hear from Adis about the things that he has done in his building that have literally saved his building tens of thousands of dollars. And then we will hear from Alexander Weiss. And then we will hear from Daniel Karpen about banging pipes. And Bill Jebaily, throughout this, if there are any questions that you have of the speakers, your role is to ask of them, draw more out from them when, while they're still at the mic here. Somewhat of a sub-moderator to Charlie, okay?
You want me to give them a hard time?
Well, only in a good way, okay? And so let's see. So then, towards the end, Peter Funk is going to tell us the financial disaster that his clients have seen when they miss that mark and they don't switch off the gas soon enough. And he's going to talk about that. And then we're going to have Motie come back and wrap some things up that he's heard, and Alexander Weiss will then come back and wrap some things up. And throughout, Charlie will be keeping control. Okay? So, Charlie, then we have some handouts that we didn't hand out yet, but we're going to hand them out so you can refer to it. Okay? But I'm going to give you the mic just to say hello and... Yes. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell, and thank everybody for coming today. I didn't realize we had a whole group of speakers here, so we may be here for dinner tonight. Are you ready, Margie?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All right. Okay. Anyway, my name is Charlie Marino, Braxton Engineering. I've been around for a couple of years, and I know a lot of new and old faces. I've been in this building 10 million times, or maybe 500,000, but I've never been in this room. And I collect used engineering books. So as we leave today, I'm going to ask you to take a case of books. I have my car outside. Anyway, I looked on these wonderful things that we have. It's 48 degrees outside, so I don't think we're going to need heat. But the topic is a very, very important and interesting one for your buildings, whether it's steam or hot water or radiant heat or whatever the heating medium is. Fan coil units, I may be doing a job, and I said, let's keep the existing heating system. No, Charlie, we want to go to through-wall units. Okay, well, that's their decision. But the key to what you'll be hearing about today and what I learned a million years ago is that heating systems, just like any other part of a building, any component of a building, any part of your body, is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. And that's why all of us are working here today and have jobs, because people don't maintain their buildings. And I just happened to be in a building yesterday on the east side. Place was a disaster, and I didn't even need to look. The heating system, the roof, the exterior walls. We can go on and on and on. The handout that I gave you is just a couple of pages to let you know the different types or a couple of types of heating systems there are. New York City has a wealth of old steam pipe systems. To me, and maybe somebody on the group will say, no, Charlie, this is a better, more efficient system. I grew up with steam, low-pressure steam. And it's been around since, what, the 1800s? And is still very prevalent throughout the city. And there's tons, and you're in the right room to look at it, there's tons of articles on heating systems for your buildings. but always refer to the experts, because they know, they have the hands-on experience, and that's the most important. So without further ado, you're up, Motie? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Margie, thanks for inviting me to the forum. You asked me to touch on a few things today, that including conversions in your building from 6 oil, which is actually being rolled out in July, at the end of July. The criteria have changed over the past 2 years where these conversions are concerned. Because I think about a year ago, Air Resources sent out a letter, it wouldn't cost you more than $12,000 to do these conversions. A lot of landlords, a lot of management company finding that it's not $12,000, it's more than that, because although you're not touching everything, annual boiler inspections got to be done on these buildings. Department of Buildings is now involved with this. So when you're cleaning these tanks, and although they were quote unquote in a cement, it has to be raised. That's another cost that's incurred. And this is over a period of 1 year, that things have changed between the Department of Buildings and what they're looking for. I had one landlord up in the Bronx last week said, I gave him a bill for $16,000. He said, Motie, they said $9,000 to do the conversion. I said, no, there's other things that are involved with this. Not just taking out the sidearm heater, cleaning the tank. You have to epoxy the rooms now. You have to make sure vent alarms are on these things, shut-off valves. It's going through like doing a new installation, complete newly installed if you're doing conversions. So those are the things we're running into, and I'm talking to Mr. Daly about it because this was not what's supposed to be done on conversions, was to keep the costs down for the landlords. So Air Resources is one department. Now they're integrating it with Department of Buildings. So whatever in management, if you have violations, you'll get more violations because Department of Buildings is going down there to look. With the conversions from 6 to 4 or 2, a lot of people is going to 2 oil and gas. And that's taking a toll also on management because Con Edison, 3 years, 2 years to get gas lines in and approval. And that's frustrating, very, very frustrating because they'll come with one and then they fire the bunch of guys, the other engineers, and another one comes in and tell you, oh, we have to run new lines from the street. Another one said that the meters are on the wrong place. You're not following diagrams. I said, you know, so these are things that are happening over the past year that I've seen within the conversion, but it's going nice. I think it's making money, and we'll try to save you money at the same time. So on going to 4 oil now, they require you to have 82%. You must on 4 oil or 2 oil. Gas, they dropped the percentage bill, I think 80, right? On gas performance tests. But they're asking you, Air Resources is asking you to do a pre-DAR test and submit that. If you're below that 82%, they're holding you liable for those Air Resources. It's like you're doing the performance test for them. They wouldn't come out. If you go over 82%, they wouldn't even come out and look at your building. They trust you. I think down the line, what Radha Christian is looking at Air Resources, if they do come out, they're going to start charging a fee. Apart from that fee that you pay at $345 every 3 years, and if we don't come up to par with them at that 82%, when you do the performance test, and they have to come out, they're talking about charging fees for their engineers to come out. It's not happening now, but it's a talk. If you guys have any questions, I'll be around. I know talking about balancing system and all that, but anyone in this room, you should read the book Dead Man's Theme from Dan Houlihan. It's a perfect book. It's a simple book about balancing your system and keeping your system balanced, resident or homeowners. You know, take a pot of water, you put a cover on it, it boils over. You remove that cover, you have free steam. So with that, if you guys have any questions, you know.
Okay. Well, right now we'll hold the questions till the end unless one of the other panelists wants to ask you about something specifically
Okay.
you just spoke about, but you're also coming back. And also Dan Houlihan is going to be our featured speaker at the June meeting here for NIARM. So this is his last year, his last victory tour, and we can never get him again after 2015, but he's going to be here.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, okay. So, Edith?
Hello, everyone. My name is Feratovic. I'm the resident manager up West Side with First Service Residential. Today, I'm going to speak about boiler improvements and result in economic efficiency and reducing energy cost. I have 9 years experience working as a superintendent in Jackson Heights, Queens. From beginning for my tenure there, middle of the winter, our boiler died. There was no fixing. We had a temporary boiler outside, and the management company in the building hired actually aggressive heating to change the boiler. They did really good job, because for 9 years there, I only had a few issues, mostly safety issues that I could have corrected myself. About a year and a half ago, I was later promoted to resident manager here in the city. I took with me 9 years of my experience in Jackson Heights and 5 years of knowledge and gained through certified courses with 32BJ, 1 year of which was dedicated for the boilers alone, from the parts to water treatment and everything in between. Some of the courses were taught by Margie Russell, and I really learned a lot, and I can proudly say that I learned from the best. Not because I'm here, because
Thank you.
I really learned a lot. In this building, when I first walked through the building, I was trying to figure out and ask my staff to really identify the problems. And the first thing that they said, this boiler breaks down 3-4 times a day. So I went through the boiler to see what's going on, and I see, as soon as I walked in the boiler, there was a step-down transformer that leads to somewhere. And I asked my engineer, what is this for? And I see the mattress right next to it. And it was like, oh yeah, when people call for heat, we just put a mattress on the transformer and triggers the thermostat on between 9 and 10 floors. Okay, good for me. During my walkthrough, I went to the 9 and 10 floor, and I seen a transformer between 9 and 10 floor, and I couldn't read it. I didn't know what it was. Probably from 1920s or older, most likely older than me. Even more concerning, it was located directly underneath the window. Okay? I replaced that old dial transformer with the new one, digital one, living out of Home Depot, $80 or something I spent. I relocated the thermostat 2-3 feet away from the window because of the draft and non-insulated windows. The window was old, so I moved it away from it. Immediately, I seen the difference. People weren't complaining during the day that there was no heat. When I was going in the basement, I seen all the traps that weren't working properly. I tried to clean them and tried to really understand what's going on. In Queens, in Jackson Heights, I had a one-pipe system. This is a two-pipe system with the vacuums. So I knew what's going on and what needs to be done. Residents were complaining about whistling, hammering, all kinds of noises through their radiators. And I immediately notified the board and the management. The next meeting that we had, monthly meeting, I suggested we change the traps immediately. Because of live steam was coming back into the boiler, and sometimes we would dump the steam out. The condensation through the vacuum system would go right out. So I tried to save all that. There was a problem with the flame failure. Before, when the boiler was go off, the staff was instructed by the previous resident manager to go downstairs, press the button to restart the boiler 2 or 3 times a day. I didn't want to be a babysitter. I didn't want to be in a boiler all this time. So I did all the changes. I called the company. They came a couple of times. I didn't know what's going on with the boiler. I was talking to my property manager, and she said, if you want to try some other company, you can. I was like, what am I going to call? I'm a new kid in the city. I don't know that many companies. And she was like, well, you can call this guy Billy from Aggressive Heating. I was like, are you serious? I know Billy for 9+ years from Jackson Heights. I was like, listen, okay, fine, let's try it. I called him immediately, and I said, listen, I have a Superior boiler from 1971. Okay, I'm burning number 4. Send me somebody here. I have no heat. He sent his guy. In an hour, he showed up, tried to do something, and he made it work. When I did all these changes, I really didn't realize how much oil my building was using before me. In mid-October, First Service Residential took over that building. December 24th, I got in. So we didn't know exactly what's going on. By me changing the thermostat, fixing the boiler, in that first 4 or 5 months, I saved about $15,000 for the building, okay? To make it easier to understand, it's about 4,000 gallons of oil, okay? I also started doing a water treatment for the boiler. Since I have few certificates that I can brag about, I knew how the water treatment can work and can save even more money. I did all that. The water treatment, I guess one of the speakers will talk, prevents corrosion and leaks and all the good stuff that it's really essential to have for the boilers, prolong the life of the boiler. There was a problem with the vacuum system, and I changed the solenoid valve that was just taking water and was just dumping it, okay? So all these 4 or 5 changes that I did, when we hired the last third-party company to enforce the Local 87, they analyzed our boiler for 8 hours straight. Okay? They came to a conclusion. They gave us all the testing and everything. That boiler is running right now. Keep in mind, Superior, from 1971. That boiler is running 87.3% efficiency. I'm pretty sure these fine people here will tell you the new boiler, if you're lucky, you get 23-24% efficiency. That's what I did. To me, as a resident manager, it's really important to be proactive and maintain the boiler system. Try to do everything possible to save on operational cost and improve the boiler efficiency. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Alexander Weiss?
Thank you.
Yes.
I think Mr. Weiss is
Yes.
next?
Yes.
Yes. Thanks.
Right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Margie, for inviting me to this great educational program. And my few words about what you can do and why you should do it to save money. But obviously, we would do everything to save money. We have in place New York City regulations, which are actually require us to make our building systems more efficient. And we have 2014 New York City Energy Conservation Code, which states how efficient should be the building system, including the heating system or cooling system. Some cooling systems run also on natural gas. The other regulation is Local Law 87, which requires energy audit and retrocommissioning of the building system and the building itself, the envelope. Okay, and there is Local Law 84, which is benchmarking, and some data is available for similar buildings. You can access it. It's public record. You can access it and check how your building performs in comparing with other buildings, similar, residential, commercial. You know, you should be careful comparing it because there may be the benchmarking data doesn't say what systems are in a building. So some buildings, this building, Local Law 87, Local Law 84, is for buildings which 50,000 square feet and more. Okay, so some buildings are simple buildings which don't have central air conditioning. Some buildings are more complex. They have central air conditioning, they have ventilation, they have garages, they have commercial spaces, and all different kind of mechanical systems. Okay, so these are the regulations, and we try also to help mayor's office to achieve the goal of reducing carbon footprint in a New York City carbon footprint, so this all contributes to the same goal. Now, as we see, the speakers mentioned that they have problems with the heating systems, and obviously, if you take a look at your heating system or cooling system and ask your maintenance staff, are you happy with it? What do you think about it? It performs well or not? And then start analyzing your fuel usage, electrical, fuel oil, or natural gas. Okay, and then you take a look. Is this what something is standard for this size building? Do we have the right size boiler? And how we operate the boiler? Does the boiler provides the domestic hot water? So summertime, the boiler will be oversized to produce the hot water. So today, most of the installations, they separate the domestic hot water from the heating system. You know, so the boiler becomes smaller, using less fuel, and the water heating can be high efficiency or high efficiency condensing boiler. So you get efficiency increase on the domestic hot water, and you get increase in efficiency of your boiler. Now, if your boiler is cycling, so turns on 5, 6, 7 times an hour, so it's using more oil or gas when it's needed for your building. And it's usually when the boiler is oversized, and it can happen for different reasons, or somebody came to replace the boiler and decided that, you know, a little bit bigger boiler will not hurt, you will get more steam or water, and then all of a sudden you have oversized boiler which is on, off, and using more oil. It's, one reason is that bigger sized boilers, they have pre-purge and post-purge cycles which purge the furnace of flue gas, or of any gas. So when next time the boiler comes on, so there is no explosion. So any unburned fuel is purged with air. So there's clean next cycle of firing, it goes smooth. Because when the burning process is burns hydrogen and carbon. Hydrogen burns to water. The hydrogen you burn with oxygen, it gives you H2O, which is water, and it's vapors which go out the chimney. And carbon burns to carbon monoxide, CO, and carbon dioxide. So carbon monoxide is incomplete burning of fuel. That's where the fuel can be lost. BTUs just can leave through the chimney, and that's a loss, and that requires the burner adjustment to reduce the amount of unburned fuel. CO2 is harmful. It's not harmful. It's not dangerous. It also goes out the chimney, but carries with it some heat. So condensing boilers, they removed part of the heat from the flue gas. So the flue gas in condensing boilers are much lower temperature. So that's where you're increasing the efficiency of your heating system. Maintenance, before I get to maintenance, balancing. So usually you have to know how much radiators are in your building, and that will determine if your boiler is the correct size. Some steam boilers are rated in square feet of radiation. That means how much square feet of surface the entire radiators they have in your building, and that determines how much heat you get. So it doesn't matter if you calculate how much your heat loss or heat gain. The heat loss, for a steam boiler, it's only important how many radiators you have. And when you calculate your radiators, because over life of building, people tend to remove radiators, to replace radiators, and the size, they change the size, and over time, your installed radiation may be different, but the boiler is not matching it. So you can have losses right there. Okay, so you have, and the balancing with the steam system is not too much you can do with balancing. There is a few options, but not too much. With the water heating system, there is a lot of things you can do to balance the system. If you have uneven heat in different spaces of your building, some spaces overheated, some are cooler, so then you need to balance the system. When balancing the system, you will gain in your efficiency, and you will not waste your fuel heating up extra hot water. And also, you have to know if your pumps are properly sized, because if your pumps pumping more water in the hydronic system, then it means that you will get, it's called overflow and underflow. Some radiators overflow, some radiators underflow because of the imbalance in the system. Overflow doesn't hurt too much. It will just decrease a little bit of heat. It doesn't increase too much of heat gain in the space it's heating. But underflow, the room will be much cooler and uncomfortable. Okay, so we can talk separate another lecture on balancing, but this is just examples that how balancing can save money and fuel use and electrical use. I had a job where 3 buildings were heated from one boiler, and one had a very long line, piping, running far. Then the second building was closer, and one very close. And one pump is pumping all these 3 buildings. So obviously the pump has to be sized for the longest run. And for the buildings which are closer, you have to put a valve, and so will take extra pressure on it. So the pump is pumping against these valves, so it's losing energy. Okay, so what I did, I just replaced that one pump. It was 5 horsepower pump with one 1 horsepower, one 1.5, and one 2 horsepower. I put 4.5 horsepower together, total, a little bit less, but it worked each zone separately. And it just pump as much as it required for the zone. So this is one way to look and adjust your electrical load. And some places, I've been in one hospital to look at air conditioning system. They had a steam system, but it was so overheating the space that they installed air conditioning to cool the patient room. You know, because I say, why you installing air conditioning? Why you not adjusting your steam system? We tried, we could not get it done, so we installing now air conditioning to cool down the space which is heated by steam. Okay, so maintenance is one of the most important things in savings, but obviously maintenance is also money. You know, you have to invest. Sometimes you need money for other purposes, so you take away from maintenance. But maintenance, the heating system and cooling system requires daily maintenance, weekly maintenance, monthly maintenance, and annual maintenance. And you have to check the water. You have to do a blowdown on the boiler. You have to check the gauges. Then you have to do calibration of your gauges, of pressure gauges and thermostats. And you have to check the settings, the pressure. If on a steam boiler, you run your boiler 5 pounds of pressure, it's waste of energy. Most buildings in the city you can run on 1.5, 2 pounds of pressure. But, some maintenance personnel or whoever decides that 5 pounds is okay, it's a standard, let's put it 5 pounds. But you don't need 5 pounds. If you run the boiler on 5 pounds, that means the steam is much hotter when on the 2 pounds. But that is all waste. Your steam is hot enough at 2 pounds to provide the heat which you need in a building. So this is maintenance. And obviously you need a logbook in a boiler room. So any maintenance you do on a boiler, you have to log into the book. So you know what you did. You need, the logbook is available from National Boiler Board, or I think NBM, National Board of Boiler Manufacturers, and it's available. If you want to know exactly where to get it, let me know. So, and obviously you need operational and maintenance manual in a boiler room. So your maintenance staff works with that manuals, and they know what to do. So this is what I would like to mention, and I hope that you will look at your heating systems and cooling systems now differently, and you will analyze, is it using more electrical energy, natural gas, or fuel gas more than your building needs, and if you can save energy, if you see that there is opportunity to save energy, so that's the way to go, to invite professionals and get advice on how you can save energy in your building. And obviously, energy auditors, we have now in the city many certified energy auditors, energy managers, and they will help you, they will give you an advice, and I think you will feel much better. You will see some money available, or maybe for maintenance. You just can make money from saving and increasing the efficiency of your heating system, cooling system, and then you can make you can finance the maintenance. And you will, obviously, and you will increase the comfort, the environmental comfort in your building. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Excuse me. Next, I think, is Bill. You're up.
Well, it's
Oh.
actually Daniel who's going
Daniel?
to speak about the
Okay.
banging pipes.
All right,
And then-
come on, Daniel.
And then once Daniel is finished, then Bill, if you have any thoughts or questions of the other speakers, and then Motie comes back.
All right, very good.
Okay. We'll hand them out.
And they will help you, they will give you an advice, and I think you will feel much better. You will see some money available, or maybe for maintenance. You just can make money from saving and increasing the efficiency of your heating system, cooling system, and then you can make you can finance the maintenance, and you will obviously, and you will increase the comfort, the environmental comfort in your building. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Excuse me. Next, I think, is Bill. You're up.
Well, it's
Oh.
actually Daniel who's going
Daniel?
to speak about the
Okay.
banging pipes.
All right,
And then-
come on, Daniel.
And then once Daniel is finished, then Bill, if you have any thoughts or questions of the other speakers, and then Motie comes back.
All right, very good.
Okay. We'll hand them out. Okay.
Thanks,
you,
Daniel.
My name is Daniel Karpen. I'm a professional engineer based in Huntington, Long Island. I've been licensed since 1988, and I've been doing steam heating engineering ever since, on and off, as people needs it. One of the things that I've noticed in a lot of buildings is steam pipe banging problems. I have an article in the Cooperator magazine, which is being handed out, that goes through some of the common problems that we'll find in buildings. And typically, it's due to poor maintenance, poor operation, and in some cases, poor design of the system to begin with. So let's look at some of the things that we find in buildings that cause steam pipe banging problems. Number one, the pipes are not pitched properly. Everyone sort of knows about this, so very rarely do I find a case of improper pitching, but sometimes that can occur because there's a pipe hanger that holds the steam line up, and suddenly the pipe hanger has rusted out, fallen, or so forth, and the steam line has a sag. The condensate collects in there, and when the steam comes on, the steam pressure pushes the condensate down the line, and you hear a bang. So what you need to do there is replace that hanger, put it back, check it out. Number two, mentioned earlier, the steam pressure is set too high. I was in a building recently where the steam pressure was set at 4 pounds. I told the owner, because you have a two-pipe steam system in this building without traps, all you need is 3/10 or 4/10 of a pound pressure necessary. Now, what's interesting is that steam flows faster when the pressure is lower. Why? Does anyone know why? You know, what's the reason? No. What the reason is that steam flows faster when the pressure is less, because when the steam pressure is less, the steam is less dense and travels more quickly down the steam lines. The lower the pressure, the less the pipes will bang. The key is, in no case, in all steam-heated buildings in the city of New York are designed to get steam from the boiler to the furnace radiator with about 0.5 pound to 1 pound of pressure. Very rarely will you ever need more than 1 pound of steam pressure to do the job. It's amazing. Because when does the steam fly off the boiler fastest? At startup, at 0 pounds. 3, the condensate lines are clogged. They're preventing condensate returning to the boiler. A friend of mine told me about that problem once. One side of the building was getting heat, the other side no heat at all, and pipe banging. So they opened up the condensate return lines, flushed them out. 75 years of crud was accumulating there. The building was then rebalanced. It happens. When was the last time the condensate lines were flushed out in your building? Answer that one. 4, the steam traps have failed in the two-pipe steam heating system. Mentioned earlier, if the traps have failed, they fail 2 ways. Either they fail open or they fail closed. They rarely fail closed. They fail open, which means the return lines become steam lines, causes overheating of the building, and you can't get the balancing right. Impossible. Unfortunately, steam is not emotional. It follows the laws of physics. You need to replace all of the thermostatic traps at the end of each radiator. You cannot pray that this problem will go away on its own. You must spend money from your co-op or condo budget to fix the problem. Sorry about that. And the unfortunate thing is, how long do you think a thermostatic trap on a radiator actually lasts? Does anyone actually know the answer to that question? How long? 3 to 4 years is about the life of a steam trap on the end of a radiator. I was in a church in Brooklyn a couple of years ago, and they had the original traps in the building that were 100 years old. You could tell by the fact that there were 15 layers of paint on the trap. I actually got them to replace all the steam traps in their building to prevent live steam from coming back through the condensate return lines. Unfortunately, they're left with they have a terribly oversized boiler. The boiler's rated about 2 million BTUs. There's only about 500, 600,000 BTUs of attached radiation load. The result is excessive cycling of the boiler, going on, going off all the time. There's only one solution to that. Replace the boiler with a smaller boiler, and that will work. And it's amazing if you get a boiler, if the boiler if you do the engineering and calculate the heat load of the building, compare that against the actual use and against the radiation load, one can get a system that will be absolutely quiet, won't cycle on and off in the middle of winter, won't keep you up at night. And it can be done, and I know how to do it. Just call me. 5, you have dirty boiler water. Because the water chemistry is poor, condensate is being thrown up the steam lines along with steam. You need to dump the boiler water and clean the internals of the boiler using boiler cleaning compounds. You need to have water treatment, mentioned earlier, to keep the pH between 8 and 11. When was the last time someone actually cleaned the boiler and its system and dumped everything and started from scratch with clean boiler water? When was the last time that was done in your building? Can you answer that question? 6, uninsulated steam lines. Steam is condensing along the line. The condensate is causing the steam hazard. In order to solve the problem, you need to insulate the steam lines. You need to spend the money. If one insulates a steam line on October 1st, when will you recover the investment? Does anyone know? What'd you say? If you insulate the steam lines in your building on October 1st, before the heating system begins, when will you recover your investment? Does anyone know? By May 1st, 100% return on the investment, better than the stock market, and far safer. 7, one-pipe radiators that are partially open. If the valve is not fully open, the condensate is getting away the steam trying to get into the radiator. This problem is usually restricted to individual radiators. You have to tell the tenants and people in the building, if you have a one-pipe radiator, either it's fully open or fully closed, one of the two. Partially open doesn't work. 8, if you replace a boiler, make sure the water line is at the proper height. If you change the level of a water line, a dry return line can turn into a wet return line that will knock depending on the steam boiler pressure. If you're replacing a boiler, the first thing I do when I do a boiler survey, I take a ruler, measure where the water line is, write it down. If I'm going to replace the boiler, I put in the specifications to the contractor. Boiler water line is to be 54 inches from the floor. They're to follow that. If they don't, I make them change it. I write tight specifications for my jobs. 9, a long nipple at the Hartford loop. The Hartford loop is to prevent dry firing of a boiler. Usually it goes up like this and down. The nipple's only a few inches long. If the nipple's 12 inches long, you'll get pipe banging at the nipple. Sorry, you're going to have to call in a steam fitter and have them change it. 10, someone used concentric reducers instead of eccentric reducers where the main steam line changes sizes. If you got a steam line here and it changes sizes, you use a concentric reducer so at the bottom of the steam line is the same place. You use eccentric reducer, if you use a concentric reducer, then you get this puddle in there, and that just will be shot down the line next time the boiler comes on. If you have a concentric reducer where you're supposed to have an eccentric reducer, the only solution is call in the steam fitter and change it. These are 10 of the more common problems that I find in causing steam pipe banging. Sometimes there are other situations which require sophisticated engineering. If you have a need to call me, please call Daniel Karpen at 631-427-0723. Again, the number is 631-427-0723. I guarantee I can solve any steam pipe banging problem, whether it's in a one-family house or a 400-unit building. I once did a job for a fellow in Riverside section of the Bronx. He had terrible steam pipe banging problems. I told him exactly what to do. He followed all my recommendations and then calls me about a month or two later, I don't hear anything. Well, guess what? You're not supposed to hear anything at all in a properly operating steam system. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Daniel. That was excellent. That was excellent. We're going to hold the questions until the end, but Daniel, that was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bill, did you have any questions? I'm sorry, Charlie. You want to?
No. I just want to introduce our final speaker. Or?
Well, not necessarily
Next
final,
speaker.
but next.
I'm sorry,
okay.
I'm not by the microphone yet.
Oh, it's okay. All right. Well, Peter can certainly speak now, but we're going to bring Motie back up and Alex. So we're still on the mechanical. But Peter, if you're ready to go, we're ready to listen. Let's go. Let's do it. And then we're going to hear from Motie and Alex and Bill whenever you want to jump in. It's all yours.
I'll field questions.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Peter Funk. I'm a partner in Funk and Zeifer. I've been practicing energy and utility law for 41 years and just beginning to learn something. Charlie started with a great comment today. We are here today because of what people don't do. And that is especially true when you are talking about interruptible gas. Margie promised that I would have horror stories. Actually, I have a couple of them. And let's start. A property owner who owns numerous multifamily buildings in Brooklyn, bought a new building, January of last year. Building was gas-fired. As of the end of the billing period for National Grid, it received a bill for $100,000. Now, that certainly caught their attention. This was a huge, huge increase over their expected bill for the multifamily building. What had happened? It turns out that they were what's called a heat rate customer. What that means is when you are on a gas heat rate, you are an interruptible customer who is required to convert to oil in the event of certain temperature conditions. In this case, an automatic box had been installed by National Grid. The idea of the box was, upon a signal, it would change over to the oil burner. The signal went out. The box tried to start up the oil burner. It didn't start. The customer was unaware of this. It was a brand new building. They were getting organized with the management of the building, and the building continued to burn gas and continued to burn gas. Now, what had gone wrong? What had gone wrong was, number one, National Grid had the wrong contact information. In addition to sending out a message, they try to contact you. They had the contact information for the old customer. In addition, unbeknownst to the owner, who perhaps could have done more due diligence when they bought the building, there had been a test before every heating season, whether you're in Con Edison service territory or National Grids, they run a test, say a 4-hour test. You have to convert during that time. If you don't convert, it's a strike against you. In Con Ed service territory, in National Grid service territory, 2 strikes and you're out. They convert you to another higher tariff level. Now, they did one thing that was very helpful. They hired me and my firm. I spoke to without going into all the details, I spoke ultimately to the National Grid attorneys. I recited tariff provisions, but the main thing I pointed out was they were a brand new customer. The application hadn't even been, their new application hadn't even been received. In this particular case, the increased rate I felt was inappropriately applied. They had already been advised that National Grid never backs off on that, and that's usually the advice. But in this particular case, it did have a happy ending. National Grid did agree to rescind the charge. I will say that almost never happens. If you are a off-peak firm customer or an off-peak, let's say, economic customer, meaning you're on an interruptible rate to save money, you can be on a manual switch basis. Say in Con Edison service territory, they send you a fax, a telephone, email, and your on-site people must make the switch. Usually you'll get about 6 hours notice. If you don't make the switch, you can run into costs that are as much as, I'm looking at the penalty, 9 times the market rate of gas. So this is the downside. I'm not going to go into all the details today. I don't have the time, but just be alert that if you are on an interruptible rate, you are thoroughly familiar, you are cautious. It's not a bad idea to switch before. If you get a 6-hour notice to switch at 5 hours, be very careful. I've mentioned that I had 2 horror stories. The next one, for those who convert to gas, there are many advantages. There are incentives, there are green advantages, but there is a downside. And the downside results from a metering problem. If your meter is inaccurate, and I have two cases, one of which I'm dealing with, another case another attorney's dealing with. In one instance, Con Edison installed an inaccurate meter. Eventually, they agreed it was just not really functioning at all, and it vastly overcharged, about $500,000. The customer provided information. They couldn't have been paying that much. Here's our boiler. Here's the boiler's burn rate. Here's the history. Con Edison refused. They changed the meter, and they put in an accurate, and they refused to make the refund. That matter is now before the Public Service Commission. So don't expect Con Edison to readily agree. Now, if someone's from Con Edison here, they're certainly welcome to speak to it, but the experience of this attorney has been negative in this result. And I will tell you, I have represented gas and electric utilities. I have been outside general counsel in a firm that was outside general counsel for gas and electric. Most of the time, I have defended utilities, but this is not one of them. The other is an even worse case, Upper West Side, Manhattan condominium. Con Edison concluded their vastly oversized meter. We talked about sizing systems. We just heard about sizing steam systems. Well, this meter was a 60-inch turbine meter. The building needed perhaps a rotary meter of half that size. It was actually under reading. Con Edison adjusted the multiplier. I won't get into that, except it's a little device that sits on top of the meter that adjusts for pressure or temperature. And it resulted in a 300% over reading. The building management, the outside management, noticed this tremendous disparity between this building and the other buildings they managed, brought it to Con Edison's attention. Con Edison said, we're right, actually, we're entitled to back charge this customer. It ultimately went to the PSC, where it is right now. But in the meantime, the customer hired an excellent engineer, did 2 studies, showed that if Con Edison was right, everybody in the building would have to take 30 showers a day. One was an ASHRAE study. Another evaluation was even more profound. We put in check meters right behind the Con Edison meter that showed that the Con Edison meter was 300% inaccurate. Ultimately, with the PSC staff, Con Edison agreed to change the meter. We changed the meter, put in a small meter. The day after we put in the meter, the usage registered went down 80%. And at that point, of course, Con Edison agreed to refund this was another $500,000 overcharge. No, they didn't. They still refused. And so this is now pending before the PSC. My advice is, with metering, if you do a conversion, make sure you have your engineer carefully check the size of the meter Con Edison is putting in. And that the information that you send to Con Edison about your heating system is absolutely accurate. Don't overstate it, because there are all sorts of things that can happen. But those 2 things will go a long way toward preventing the type of horror stories that I've described. Other than these types of situations, Con Edison can be slow to do things, but does a lot of commendable things. I could go on, but time is passing, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Margie, I'm your humble servant about what to do. Oh, we do have a question.
Jim, you want to use this microphone back here? This is all yours here.
The question is, have you had similar experiences with oil consumption?
Now, that raises a really interesting question. I'm glad you mentioned that. When you are dealing with Con Edison, conceptually, you're dealing with a utility with a franchise. If you're dealing with an oil company, which certainly wouldn't be Bill's oil company, but if you're dealing with a good one, you won't need to, but if you're being overcharged, you can switch because it does not have a franchise. When you're dealing with a utility, you have only, and you're dealing with metering, you have only one recourse. You have to go to the PSC because of a legal doctrine called primary jurisdiction. The PSC has jurisdiction over these types of matters, and you have to take it up through a process. But in the private sector, if you don't like the price, you don't like the service, you can switch.
I'll add to Peter's horror story about the one where the meter was.
Yeah. Bill, you want to just use the microphone there? Thank you.
I can add to Peter's horror story regarding your first story.
Yes,
About with Con
which you
Ed
told me about originally.
I'm sorry?
Which you told me about
Yeah.
originally.
That was an installation that we had done. And this building burnt about maybe 50,000 gallons of oil a year. And naturally the boiler was engineered to burn a certain amount of gas and so on and so forth. So we started up the boiler on gas, job went great. The building, basically Con Ed's meters read that the building burned probably about 400 or 500% more gas than the building actually did burn. The building had in place an ACH in place with automatic fund transfer over to Con Ed when the bill comes out. And the reason why the building found out that there was an actual problem is that Con Ed had drawn down $800,000 from their account for 2 months' worth of gas, okay? So naturally, I got involved. I brought the case to Peter and another attorney, and we convinced Con Ed to change the meters. Con Ed changed the meter. The usage went down by 500 or 600%. Went down from, now the bills went from $250,000 a month down to $30,000 a month. I mean, it's plain and simple. There was something wrong with the meter. Hence, this issue that this building is in a lawsuit with Con Ed. We've proven to Con Ed more than once, I've done it myself, that the building was incapable of burning the gas. But the worst part of it is that it's not that they have to pay a bill and Con Ed wants to be paid. Con Ed took the money, and now this building is out $800,000. And this is going on now 2 years now, Pete?
Yes.
About 2 years.
Yeah,
$800,000. I've personally spoken to executives at Con Ed, and they've told me, yeah, Bill, listen, we're going to find out about this. We're going to determine it. They could come pick up the check. Nothing's happened. So, one easy piece of advice is that do not go into an ACH with Con Ed until the account is established and you're burning the proper amount of gas. I mean, I'd rather owe it to them than be fighting to get it back, And then when the building stopped the ACH and Con Ed's got this $800,000 in excess funds, they were about to shut the meters off because the building stopped paying for the gas. But ultimately, the building is actually still paying bills for the gas on a regular basis, and Con Ed has their $800,000. So.
That is a problem, and in both these cases, the buildings initially went to the PSC with this kind of information and at a lower level, an informal hearing, and got negative results. I recall when I saw that on the second case, that the usage had dropped 80%, I turned to my partner and I said, this hopefully is a slam dunk. It wasn't. Part of it is that there is a doctrine that the test of a meter will be conclusive. But what happens if in one of these cases the test was the wrong kind of test? It was a test for a much bigger meter, and it didn't test the actual element of the meter that had caused the problem. And in the case Bill just spoke about, the test of the meter was impossible because the meter was broken.
They actually claimed they tested the meter and it was correct.
There were two meters.
Yeah.
One of the meters was correct.
The proof is there. The building couldn't, the pipe couldn't inflow that amount of gas.
So this gets back to your comment. There are issues in dealing with monopolies. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Peter. That was excellent. Charlie, you can take over if you want. We want to hear from Motie. We want to hear from Alex again, but we also want to hear from you, too, a little bit more.
I really don't have much to say. I learned quite a bit today. I do have a question regarding our friends from Con Ed, because I didn't realize, do they have a standard operating procedure relative to checking their meters?
They are required by two things. By the regulation, to be technical, 16 NYCRR, which the part that deals with gas utilities, and their tariff requires regular checks. But if there is a problem like the one that was experienced, that Bill talked about, the checks don't come frequently to pick up, frequently enough to pick up that kind of problem. And the other thing is that there are elements these days of meters that are black boxes that are controlled by computers, and you have to program them correctly by computer. In the first case, the second case I talked about, the Con Ed witness at the hearing said, oh, well, the test of the meter would not have revealed the problem. And despite that and all the other evidence, the informal hearing officer ruled that the customer had presented no evidence. We had the equivalent of 2 feet of evidence. Hard to explain, but Con Edison on metering questions generally will prevail. In fact, in a very thoroughgoing search, I was unable to find a single case where a customer had been upheld on a metering question. So you have to be careful in the first instance. Work closely with your engineer. It's well worth it to keep track of what's doing when a meter is installed. Now,
The meter can be clocked as well. Upon the installation, the contractor, upon the installation, firing up the burner initially, the installation contractor should clock the meter. We go out, we know exactly what the burner is burning per hour, and we can actually clock that meter to see how much gas is going through that meter. And that's become a practice of ours now since this one instance out in Queens.
well, I highly recommend that you work with Bill or someone like Bill to have that done. We had to put in check meters, which are essentially backup meters to determine what was going on. It's a difficult situation. Most of the time, Con Edison is right, particularly with electric meters, but sometimes they're not. And so these things can occur. Now, I will tell you, both these cases are still pending, and when I next speak, hopefully I'll have happy news that the Public Service Commission has properly addressed these issues and has corrected them, because both of the adverse decisions occurred with OCS at a lower level. So we've effectively appealed these matters to both myself and the other attorney to the commission itself, and we're hoping that this will become resolved, hopefully in the near future. But
I had a case of about 30 years ago of a manufacturing firm where Con Ed didn't read the meter for 2 years and sent the fellow estimated bills, and Con Ed claimed the meter ran over all the zeros, 10,000 CFM of gas, and it never occurred. The manufacturing firm eventually got all its money back.
Con Edison, by the way, any utility in this state should only give you estimated bills for 2 successive months under the Public Service Commission rules. So if you get an estimated bill for 3 months in a row, call your representative and try to straighten that out. Make sure you get a properly read bill.
Okay. Motie, Prashad, unless Charlie, we want you to hear more of your wisdom.
We've gone back, if we take 5 or 10% of what this panel is given to the managing agents, to homeowners who are here, you'll save tons of money. But getting back to Con Edison and the tariffs in our industry and Bill's industry, we had 22 days of interruptible gas for the school system, for all the gas oil interruptible, and they wouldn't stop. They're telling the homeowners or the residents that they must burn oil. That takes a toll on deliveries and also consumption. Gallonage, Bill had gone through, we running out of oil for the school system. So those are things. So I think 2 weeks ago, they started with it, and John Maniscalco went to the commission and asked them that, you know, you're charging people if they don't go to oil. Why can the oil company not charge you guys for changing over? So they broke the last two interruptible session, which was about 2 weeks ago, and the week prior. They only allowed 7 hours of interruptible, just to ease the burden on the oil companies, because you were running out of product. So those are little things that we have to think about, the volume of oil that was done towards these gas interruptibles and what it did to other people. The forum was great today. The only thing that we did not touch on energy is that the new Bloomberg had asked and mandate 2% biofuel in all oil products. I don't know if you're aware of it, that you're getting 2% of biofuel in all your deliveries, which also it's an incentive from the state for anybody who's using oil. You get a penny for every gallon you use. So you can go from 2% to 20%. Maximum, I would say, in any building running on 2 oil, 20% on 4 oil jobs, 5%. Biofuel also is a detergent. So when you start having shutdowns and all that, initially, they may not have told you, or you didn't read, or the companies that you're dealing with may not have informed you that you have 2% or 5% biofuel in your tank on every delivery. So those are the things you have to look at. But it's a great source, because over the period of time that I've used and seen biofuel, efficiencies of boilers have gone up tremendously. Sulfur content has come down. Maintenance of the boiler also, after a year or so, has come down tremendously. Boiler cleanings, you don't have to do that much of the boiler cleanings like you used to do over the period of the previous 6 oil. So those are things, and the little things the engineer was great. I think everybody should take that sheet that he read and stick it in the boiler room or stick it in the superintendent's office. I think it's phenomenal, and, you know, use that as a Bible, you know, going on. Yes, sir.
I have a question. A year ago, one co-op used 3 times as much oil. This is last winter.
Mm-hmm.
The management company said, well, it happened all over. We had a very cold winter. I doubt it. The winter may have been cold, but I believe, I suspect at least, that the gas company had it switched on more to oil automatically than they had a right to. What are the rules, and how can we find out the rules regarding the temperature and the hours and such that they switch it over?
It's a simple rule. Anything below 19 degrees, you have to go to, if you're a gas-oil combination, at 19 degrees, you must switch back to oil as your secondary source. Must. They may not inform you which they're supposed to, the utility company should inform the owners or the managing agent on these, but 19 degrees is the turnover point.
If 19 degrees is the turn-off point, and there is an automatic switchover, not by the staff, but by the equipment, is there any notice to the building owner as to when it was switched over and switched back?
Well, in your boiler room, and most of us, we have manual on the units, but in the boiler room, there is a blue box or start flashing oil. When they're ready to switch back over, you'll go back to the gas side of it. But most units do have a manual switchover, and they should inform you. If you have the automatic on, it should go, but on oil side, the pressures changes also. When it goes back to oil, you have a little bit of smoke or air adjustment on it, so.
As a practical matter, no one is going to stand there, record the time it changes over and write it down. Can we get, or does it appear on the bill exactly when it happened so we can look back in retrospect?
I don't think so, and I have to ask Peter
Yeah.
to answer that question.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I could add. One is that there are different types of customers. If you're a full-service interruptible customer, can reside within the discretion of the utility. They look at their system. There's a limited amount of pipe capacity. It's a very cold day, and they're making decisions about how to control the time that they require a switch off. However, if you're a automatic, which you asked about, they should also give you notice. Now, let's look at the National Grid tariff. The fact that they don't give you notice does not provide an excuse. They will send it, but they do try to give notice, because look at it from the utilities' point of view. They're trying to preserve their system. They have a limited amount of space. They have tremendous gas needs. They're trying to balance the gas system. And so they're looking at a very complicated picture. I don't think that the utility is going to deliberately require you to burn more oil. Think about it this way. The utility makes money selling gas. It's how they balance their system, and if you as an individual tried to gain some insights into it, it would be very difficult. These happen second by second. The other is, if you're people who are on a manual switchover, get a notice and then get a notice to go back, they should definitely record that time. I mean, certainly for my clients who have, if there are any questions about gas usage, I recommend that they have their superintendent keep a log. Very, very important.
Yes. Talking about logs and log notes, which is required now with this energy bill that they've passed, and in the boiler rooms, there's a very simple website also you can go on. It's called NORA, N-O-R-A website, and you'll get all the log papers. You just click on it, and it'll give you all the information and how to do your maintenance of the unit and what to keep, what is required by law. But you must keep logs of inventory, your tank every day. There's a couple of things. So if you guys get a chance, go to the NORA website, and they'll tell you everything about, going forward. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Alexander Weiss, you want to give us a little wrap-up of your thoughts? Thank you.
It's quite an interesting interchange here, and I understand that some issues are of great importance here. So I just came to my mind that we can today program our iPhone. It's not programming. You can just put in the iPhone will remind you it's cold outside and your fuel may switch, you know. But seriously, the new regulations of underground storage tanks and above ground storage tanks will require you, it's not new. There is some changes, updates, which are coming. You will require to monitor your tank before delivery and after delivery with a stick, calibrated stick, or you have electronic monitoring, and you have actually to monitor the fuel deliveries and how much fuel is in the storage tank, and you have to log it in and check if you have leakage in your tank. So you should know how much oil is delivered by just measuring knowing your capacity of your tank and knowing the level of oil in your tank before delivery and after delivery. And you have also a calibrated gauge in your boiler room, which you have to monitor this. So then you know. And if you monitor the oil level in a tank, then you will know if you have a change from gas to oil, because you will know your daily balance of oil. So this obviously has to be done, and you may be required, you may not be required to do this as often for above ground storage tanks, because they are usually, you detect the oil leakage if you just see the tank room. But for underground storage tanks, you definitely have to do monitoring, inventory, and you have to have that in place. And it all should be logged in. And if you detect any leak or water increase in water level in your tank, or double wall tank interstitial space, you have water or you have product in that, you have to report it as a leakage. So this is about knowing how much oil you're using at your facility. Then about the change, another interesting point, and thank you, Peter, for bringing this to our attention, is that sometimes you don't have oil in your tank because the winter is mild and no forecast of, actually, you don't think that the temperature will drop. All of a sudden the temperature drops, you need to change to oil, and you have no oil. You call your oil company, but there's not too many oil companies around now. So they may not be able to come to you because they have many accounts to, and they have delivery, depends on how much oil you're asking. So just think about it, that you should have oil in your tank in case you need to switch, because like Peter explained, it could be costly to use oil when you have to use gas when you have to use oil. And so another issue is calibration. Like I agree that you should know all the metering and everything. It's you have to basically to check everything what's going on. And if you can have a metric. Every building, you take your annual usage of your oil, or check bills monthly, and just divide it by square footage, total square footage of your building. And this will be your metric. And then see how it changes from month to month and annually, and then compare it. And see if you start using more fuel. And this you can do for electric, for fuel oil, and for natural gas, water. You can check, and then compare it. If your usage going up, you have to see if is the weather colder, or I have leakage in fuel oil leak, or something wrong then with the metering. You know, the companies may charge you, but if you don't know the structure of the bills, and if you don't know how much they charge you, because you know the bill is coming, we're just paying, so then you know you can miss this stuff. So it's important to monitor your usage, and somebody has to be responsible for that. Then again, efficiency, the fuel efficiency also depends on combustion efficiency. If you increase combustion efficiency, then it's also you're saving fuel, okay? So this is another way that your boiler, your company which is servicing your boiler, and this is the last thing I would like to tell you, that we just heard that we have to use biofuel, 2% bio, so that means B2, and maybe we'll go to B5 or B20. You have to check with your service company if your burner will properly operate with biofuel, and what adjustment has to be made to your burner, or no adjustment. Maybe your burner will be fine, but maybe there will be additional maintenance on biofuel because it's different when just regular fuel. So you have to ask your delivery company what maintenance, additional maintenance you will be required to do at your facility to maintain that fuel, okay? And thank you for your attention. Thank you coming to this educational seminar.
Thank you. We have one last question on the left here. Okay.
It is on, okay. Two things, actually. With the new availability of B20 biofuel, you mentioned a lot less maintenance. Has anyone found it important that that B20 ultra-low sulfur heating fuel has lower greenhouse gas emissions than natural gas?
In the mic, Daniel. In the mic, please. Thank you.
I would say that you know the biofuel is developed to reduce the carbon footprint, and if you know, if you're using biofuel, you have to if you want just to verify it, you have to see what is the standard procedure. ASTM has the standard, and see how they calculate the carbon footprint using the biofuel.
Right, thanks. Okay. And the second thing is I'm going to unashamedly plug something that we do, and I'm going to be talking to you because your company is actually out pushing out the equipment that we provide. It reduces heating fuel consumption by an average of 15% here in New York City. So just being the subject, talk to me if you like that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think that wraps things up.